When this verse was presented to Professor Durga Rao of Surah Nur, chapter number 24, verse number 40, that the state of an unbeliever's mind is like the depths of darkness in a vast deep ocean, waves topped with dark clouds, waves over waves. If a man stretches out his hand, he cannot see it. For to whom Allah gives no light, light doesn't reach. He said this does not refer to a normal sea. It's specifically referring to a vast deep ocean. And we human beings did not know that the depths of the ocean was dark until the submarine was discovered in 1900. Before that, we did not know that the depths of the ocean was dark, because a man cannot dive more than 25 meters or 30 meters unaided. And if he goes deep, 200 meters, he will die unaided. So only when submarines were discovered, we came to know. And Professor Durga Rao, he says that the darkness in the ocean is because of various causes. Number one, when the sunlight, before it reaches the earth, sometimes there are clouds which absorb the light. So below the clouds, there's darkness. Quran says, wave stops the darkness. Then those waves which are not obstructed by the clouds, they reach the ocean. The waves on the ocean, they reflect some of the light. And you find the waves are shiny. So there's darkness below the water. That's the second reason. The third reason for darkness is when the light enters the water, it absorbs in successions. We learned in school that the light consists of 7 colors. Vibgyor, violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, and red. Yes or no? Ah, mashallah. All of them have passed school. Good. Vibgyor. So Professor Durga Rao says that the first 10 to 15 meters, the red color is absorbed. So if a person dives below 30 meters and if he starts to bleed, he cannot see the red color of his blood because red light doesn't reach there. And I remember when I went in the submarine, I had taken a Kit Kat wrapper, red in color, to see what happens. And when it went down, you could see that the red color changes the color, then you cannot see the red color. And when we do scuba diving also, when we go down, so practically I've experienced that few times in scuba diving and while going in submarine. Then from 30 to 50 meters, the orange color is absorbed. Then 50 to 100 meters, the yellow color is absorbed. From 100 to 200 meters, the green color is absorbed. And beyond 200 meters, the blue color is absorbed. And the indigo and violet, Vibgyor. So that means the darkness is in layers. So the first, immediately underwater, the darkness because the sunlight is absorbed either by the clouds or by the reflection of the waves. Then if you go deep, if you go below 30 meters, it becomes more dark, because the red color is not seen. Then if you go below 50 meters, more dark. The orange color is not seen. Orange and both not seen. If you go below 100 meters, then red, orange, yellow, all three not seen. If you go below 200 meters, green is also not seen. And if you go more deep, nothing is seen, dark. That is called the dark portion of the sea. What the Quran is talking about, not the superficial. And Durga Rao says that in this, the whole sea is divided into 2 parts, superficial and the dark part. Till the time the light is absorbed, it's called a superficial portion of the sea. When complete light is absorbed, it becomes pitch dark. It is called as the deep part of the sea. And in between, there are internal waves. How many people here knew that there are waves even inside? We know about the external waves. How many people know there were internal waves? How many people? 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, so you have not heard my lecture before. So today science tells us there are internal waves. These internal waves It divides the superficial portion of the sea or the ocean, which is warm and lit up, and the deep portion of the sea, which is dark and cold. So now if we again rehearse the verse of the Quran, Allah says, the state of the unbeliever is like the depths of darkness, not superficial, deep part of the darkness. Waves topped with waves. Internal waves, topped with superficial waves. Topped with dark clouds. Layer over layer. If a man stretches out his hand, he cannot see. For whom Allah gives no light, light doesn't reach. So imagine Allah is talking about the state of the unbeliever's mind, a kafir's mind. And Professor Durga Rao said it's not possible that this could have been known 1400 years back. He agrees this book has to be a divine revelation. In the field of biology, the Quran says in Surah Anbiya, chapter number 21, verse number 30, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ هَيْ أَفَلَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. We have created every living thing from water. Will you not then believe? Who would have believed in the deserts of Arabia 14 years ago that the Quran says everything is made from water? Who would have believed? Today science tells us that all living creature is made up of cells. The basic component of cell is cytoplasm, which contains 80% water. All living creatures in the world, they are 50 to 90% water. And they survive on water. So Quran mentioned this 14 years ago, that we have made every living thing from water. Allah says in Surah Nur, chapter number 24, verse number 45, we have made every animal from water. Allah says in Surah Furqan, chapter 25, verse 54, we have made every human being from water. In the field of biology, previously we did not know that even the plants have got sexes, male and female. Allah says in the Quran, in Surah Taha, chapter 20, verse 53, it is Allah who sends down water from the skies. And He brings forth various colors of plants. He sends down water from the sky, and with it He brings various diverse pairs of plants. So the Quran says, the word used is azwaj, that even the plants have got sexes, male and female. Allah says in Surah Ra'd, chapter number 13, verse number 3, that Allah has made the fruits in pairs, male and female. Allah says in Surah Dariyat, chapter 51, verse 49, Allah has made everything in pairs. Not only animals, not only plants, not only human beings, even things like electricity. It has got male and female, proton and electron. Allah says in Surah Yasin, chapter 36, verse number 36, Allah has made everything in pairs, that which you know and that which you don't know. That means Allah is saying, not only has He made living creatures in pairs, He's made everything in pair. The things you know and things you don't know. In the field of zoology, the Quran says in Surah Anam, chapter 6, verse 38, that Allah has made every creature that walks on the earth, every animal that walks on the earth, and every bird that flies in the air to live in communities like the human being. And today science tells us that all the birds and animals, like the human being, they live in community. Quran says in Surah Nahl, chapter 16, verse 79, that do you see the birds held up in the sky? Who holds them up? But with the power of Allah. These are signs for the believer. Allah repeats the message in Surah Mulk, chapter number 67, verse number 19, that don't you look at the birds in the midst of the sky. They unfold, they spread their wings, and they fold their wings. Who holds them up? But the power of Allah. The Arabic word used is amsak, holding up. And this holding is only done by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Professor Hamburger, he writes in his book, Flight and Fragility, that how birds, they take flights for days and weeks and months together. And he gives the example of mutton bird, which flies for 15,000 kilometers. and takes a journey of 6 months and returns back to the same spot in not more than 1 week delay. Imagine 6 months flight. How can a young bird who has no experience, are they programmed? So Prophet Hamburger says, it cannot be possible until the genetic code is programmed. And who's the programmer? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No one can hold them up but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is mentioned in Surah Nahl, chapter number 16, verse number 60 and 69. Allah has taught the bees to build its cells in hills, trees, and human habitation, and to find the spacious path of thy Lord with great skill. What did Allah mean by saying to find the spacious path of thy Lord with great skill? Fresh got a Nobel Prize in 1973 to describe how the bees, they communicate with other bees the path of the new garden or the new flower they have found. So when they want to get nectar, one bee tells the other bee the exact location and the map of the new flower and the garden by a movement of the body known as bee dance. Allah said this 14 years ago. And the worker bee mentioned, previously we thought it was a male bee. Therefore Shakespeare in Henry V, when he writes that people talking, that the soldiers bee go and they report to the king, they are wrong. Today science tells us that the worker bee, the female bee, they don't report to the king, they report to the queen. And the female gender used in Surah Nahl, chapter 16, verse number 69, it is a female gender. It is fasluki or kuli. Imagine even the gender of the worker bee is mentioned in the Quran 14 years ago, which we did not know that time. Quran says in Surah Ankabut, chapter 29, verse 41, that all those who take for protectors anyone besides Allah, they build for themselves houses like that of the spider. And verily, the house of the spider is fragile. So Quran says, if you worship anyone besides the true God Allah, you're making yourself like house of spider, which is fragile, flimsy. Besides that, today science tells us, it also talks about the flimsy relationship. Many a times, the female spider kills the male spider and is called as a black widow. Quran says in Surah Namal chapter 27, verse number 17 and 18, that when Solomon and his army and his host of jinns, men and birds, when they marched, when they approached a lowly valley of ants, one of the ants said, get ye into your habitation. One of the ants says to the other ants, O ye ants, get ye into the habitation, lest Solomon and his army unknowingly will trample you beneath the feet. People will think, what type of a fairy tale book is the Quran? Ants talking about themselves? Today science tells us the animal or insect which has the closest resemblance to the human beings, it is the ant. The ant buries the dead the same way as the human beings do. They have a sophisticated method of labor where they have manager, they have supervisor, they have foreman, they have worker. They very often meet to chat. They have marketplaces where they exchange goods. You know how we have souk. There are marketplaces where they exchange goods. And if the grains they store, if it begins to bud, they cut the bud, they cut the roots, as though they knew that budding will cause the rotting of the grain. And if the grain gets wet, they get it in the sunlight to dry, as though they knew that humidity will cause the rotting of the grain. You know, sometimes we see the ants taking grain in the sunlight. What they're doing? They're going out to dry so that there's no humidity. It prevents the rotting of the grain. In the field of medicine, Allah says in Surah Nahl, chapter 16, verse 60 and 69, that from the belly of the bee, you get a drink of varying colors in which it is healing for mankind. Today, science tells us that in the honey, there are antiseptic properties. It's rich in fructose and vitamin K. No wonder the Russian soldiers in World War II, they used honey to cover up their wound, which, because of its antiseptic properties, the scar, the healing was done with very little scar. And because of the density of honey, germs and bacteria and fungus did not grow in the wound. In the field of physiology, 600 years after the Quran was revealed, Ibn Nafis describes the blood circulation to humankind. And 1,000 years after the Quran was revealed, 400 years after Ibn Nafis, William Harvey makes it common to the world. So we read in our school book William Harvey, we don't read about Ibn Nafis. Ibn Nafis was the first human being. The food we eat, I'll say in a nutshell, the time is running short. The food we eat goes into the stomach. From the stomach goes into the intestine. From the intestine, the food constituents via the bloodstream can go into the liver. It's a complex method. It can go into the mammary glands, which produces the milk. So in a nutshell, it's talking about production of milk and the blood circulation. Quran says in Surah Nahl chapter 16 verse 66 that verily in the cattle is a lesson for you. We give you to drink for what is within the body, coming from a constituents of the excretion and the blood, the constituents of the intestine and blood. Milk which is pure for you to drink. This blood circulation and the production of milk is given in a nutshell in the Quran. Allah repeats the message in Surah Mu'minun chapter 23 verse number 21 that in the cattle is example, we give you to drink for what is within the body, milk which is pure for you, and of the meat you can eat.